An expert in international politics. He has appeared here on Channel 7 at 11 a.m. before now. Good morning, Dr. Keith Suter. Now, the present conflict, can you tell me what's led to this? What's going on at the moment?
Well, the actual flashpoint is the refusal of President Hussein to allow international inspectors to check on the weapons that he may have, particularly the Americans. He said
certainly American ones.
It's the Americans, although, of course, the fear is that having got rid of the Americans, they'll say, well, we don't need the British now, and gradually whittle it away.
And Richard Butler's having trouble, he is the UN representative, he's having trouble getting in there at all costs, at any cost.
Well, I think one of the reasons for the tension may well be that President Hussein has said, look, Richard Butler, ex-Australian diplomat, is the new person in charge of this. I'll just test him out. I'll just see what he's like.
So this is what, here we are, we have some reasons we've got here on the screen for this latest conflict. Richard Butler getting there. What else is some? Well,
a second one that you've got there is a Security Council split. What is happening is that the Americans and the British, even though you've got a Labor government, they're still following the American policy. And there is this split in the Security Council. The French and the Russians really want the sanctions to end. They want to reopen trade. Iraq needs a lot of rebuilding. Therefore, let's get in there and start rebuilding. Let's forget all this sanction stuff. And China doesn't like sanctions at all because it's afraid that if you set a precedent of sanctions, ultimately there'll be sanctions against China because of its human rights record. So, in a sense, what Hussein is trying to do is to emphasize the splits that exist within the Security Council in the hope that the Americans will be isolated and just give the whole thing away.
And this is what Saddam Hussein does eternally. He divides all the world, doesn't he?
That's right. It's a policy of cheat and retreat. So he stands up, he's awkward, and then suddenly, after a while, he'll back down. And then the whole thing moves on again. Another reason, of course, for the tension is that the sanctions have gone on for 6 years. No one predicted the sanctions to go on for this long. You see, what happened is at the end of the war in '91, it was agreed that Iraq should lose all of its weapons of mass destruction, and therefore there should be an international team sent in just to get rid of them very quickly. The incentive to make sure that that was done on Iraq was that the sanctions were kept on. No one predicted in '91 that we would have had those 6 years of sanctions, and they're hurting the average person in Iraq. Not President Hussein, he doesn't suffer, but it's a way of getting the attention off the suffering of the Iraqi people by President Hussein to simply say, look, there's the problem, it's with the Americans.
And the Arab world is divided as well, isn't it? They're not necessarily supporters of Iraq, but they're not necessarily supporters of Americans either.
Well, it's rather interesting. Kuwait, which after all been the victim of the aggression in 1990, it does not want to have another conflict in the Middle East. It's made that quite clear. And I think, in a sense, would be quite happy to have the whole sanctions ended and let's get back to making money.
One of the things that I notice also, we're watching CNN and such things, they have big banner headlines, showdown in Iraq, you know, they're building up. Now, is this really this critical at this stage? They build it up to a great big media event?
It could be. It's very difficult to say. It may well be that it's Hussein, cheat and retreat, and the whole thing will disappear in the next few days. On the other hand, don't forget you've got a lot of American planes flying over Iraq at this very moment, not the spy planes. These are patrolling the no-fly zones in northern Iraq and in southern Iraq. All it requires is some young Iraqi hothead to shoot one of them down. This is different from the U-2 spy planes, which President Hussein is threatening to shoot down. So you've got plenty of scope there for accidents to trigger a major conflict. And President Clinton's problem is he doesn't know where to go on this. He can't get rid of Hussein because there's no friendly person to replace him. He can't smash Iraq because that vacuum will then be filled by either Syria or Iran, neither of which is pro-American. On the other hand, he can't back down because the average American hates Iraq. And it's a no-win situation.
And Saddam's reveling in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't forget, he is the only one from those 1990-91 years who's still in power. Bush is gone, Thatcher is gone, Mitterrand's gone, Gorbachev is gone. He's the only one who's still in power after all these years. He's the great survivor. And for the average, ordinary Arab, he's a hero figure. Even though he gets slapped around the head, he gets knocked down, he's the only one who's taking on the Americans. The Egyptian leaders, the Jordanians, etc., are all making deals with the Americans. But he is the one who stands up.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is.
All right, well, Dr. Keith Suter, we could go on and on, of course, and we hope to see you again very soon here on 11 a.m. Thanks for joining us again here.
Thank you.
Dr. Keith Suter, an expert in international politics. Andrew.